Hi, I'm Whitney, and welcome to the EVG Venture channel, where I share my tips, my experiences working through all the different challenges and successes of being an online entrepreneur and vegan content creator. Today's series is the second episode of a new series that I'm doing called, well, I haven't quite come up with a name yet. Actually, I would love anybody's feedback on what to call this. Today, I'm calling it Success Quest. I don't know. That might sound a little bit cheesy because I just want to find a more succinct but short and simple name. But to summarize what it is, I am doing these quick 15-minute sessions with other vegan content creators who are working through some challenges with their careers, with their brands, with their content creation. And today I have the lovely Julie, who runs a brand called Mr. Hairy Pants. Julie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Julie, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm called Mr. Hairy Pants on my social media, Instagram and Twitter, and then just my regular name on Facebook, Julie Williott. I like to focus more on my, brand, so to speak, on Instagram and Twitter, and maybe I'll kind of melt that into a Facebook, but Facebook is sort of just like friends and family kind of thing. But I do speak up all the time about being vegan and being eco-friendly and living a sustainable life. So I also have a blog, and that's kind of how the whole Mr. Hairy Pants started, and it's mrhairypants.wordpress.com.
Perfect.
So yeah, it's at WordPress, and it's been a little slow going, but that's what I'd really like to focus on. And that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Well, I would love to know the story. Well, first of all, what year did you start Mr. Hairy Pants?
I want to say it's been maybe 2 years that I started the blog, and it was...
So 2013?
Yeah, I'd say
Okay.
then. Yeah, roughly.
And what's the inspiration behind the name?
Well, we have 4 kitty cats, and
Oh, I think I just saw one.
Oh, you probably did. There's probably going to be, who knows who's going to show up today, but one day my boyfriend said to Wilbur, our cat, he said, "Oh, hey, Mr. Hairy Pants, get out of the way." And I just thought that was hysterical. And then when I was thinking about a name for the blog, I didn't want it to be gender specific, and I didn't want it to be all like vegan, la la. I wanted something. I really tried to keep playfulness in my life because life is so stressful and so serious. And so it just kept coming to me that Mr. Hairy Pants is just such a cute name, and it seems that when people hear it, they automatically smile, even though they might not really understand what it means or what it's about. And so I've just kept it. I've toyed with the idea of maybe changing it. Should I be more serious? But it's just I want playfulness in my life. I want this journey of life and being kinder and compassionate to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. That's great. What is the inspiration behind you keeping going? So you started it in 2013, and we at the beginning when we first start our content, we feel really energized about it. But to keep going for 2 years is pretty substantial. Why do you keep doing it?
Well, I've had a lot of lulls, but I'm in my brain. There's like a million blogs that just haven't been put into the universe. So I keep going because the creativity is really what keeps me like motivated in life, and also just the connection. So for me, connection's always been so important, and I mean like connecting with people, obviously connecting with animals, but whenever I can have a conversation with someone, even if it's on Instagram, I've never met them before, but we just go back and forth a couple of times and it's inspiring, that lights my fire. And I would like to be that kind of person for other people as well. So that's what keeps me going. And I just know like in my heart that if I keep pursuing my passions and I keep they're so nosy.
I know.
If I keep just pursuing my passions and being true to myself, then that's when things show up in your life like unexpectedly. So
Hmm.
that's what keeps me going is I have to be doing something that I'm passionate about because life is so short and this is really fulfillment when you're doing something like that.
Absolutely. Where do you spend most of your time, on social media or on your blog?
Social media. I need to
Okay.
set a timer because I you just get
Yes.
lost.
Yep.
And sometimes
Yeah.
it's good because I think it's important to, well, for me anyway, to take time to see what other people are doing and what they're about. And it's funny because one person will lead you to a brand that'll lead you to another person that'll lead you to something else that you're interested in. And I see that time and time again. I'm always um, just expanding everything that's going around me and learning so much all the time. So,
Hmm.
so there's a time and a place for it, but sometimes I get like, I'm all, oh my gosh, it's been an hour and I could have been doing something else.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
huge thing that can really help with moving things forward. And I think a lot of people struggle with this is that they don't know where to focus or they don't know how to focus. That's something that I've been, pun intended, focusing a lot on recently with my own work is
Mm-hmm.
learning how to focus in more. And I've been studying that a lot. I'll probably do a video on that at some point. We can talk about that today if you want, but I'm going to let you guide where we put our focus on this session today. But something to keep in the back of your mind and everybody else watching is always thinking about how you can stay more focused and what you want to be focused on. The real short end of the big kind of the key to figuring out how to focus is
Mm-hmm.
always setting your priorities. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people, they don't take the time to figure out what their priorities are. And thus, if you don't know your priority, how do you know where to focus? So, really stepping back and giving yourself some time. In fact, whenever I bring somebody onto these sessions, I send them this list of questions, some prep homework that I sent Julie. And it's like a ton of different questions you can use. Julie, how long did it take you to go through all of that?
Gosh. Well, I read all the questions and then I went back to them like at a different time so that I
Okay.
could just start like, thinking about them and stuff before I just sat down and felt pressure to come up with an answer right then and there. So after I kind of digested a little bit of what like the theme was, it was super helpful. And I would say it didn't take me more than 30 minutes to,
Oh, that's good to know.
yeah,
So I
to,
think that's a great reflection for other people is
mm-hmm,
it doesn't have to take a ton of time. I think a lot of people
mm-hmm,
resist trying to figure out what's going on with their business, what they need to work on, because they don't know where to start and they don't know what direction to take. But
mm-hmm,
it can take you 30 minutes of brainstorming to sit down and really get clear. And this is where you can start to figure out where your priorities are, what you should be focusing on, what you really want to do. So I don't have the questions up for everybody else to see, but for an example, Julie, was there a specific question that you found the most helpful for you or even the most challenging?
Well, it's always challenging to me when somebody asks you what your strengths, skills, and qualities are.
Yeah.
Because we're always taught to just, minimize things, or we're not supposed to say great things about ourselves, but really, you need to build your own self confidence, and
Hmm.
you do need to make yourself a priority for sure.
Yes. So
So,
what was one of your strengths? Were you able to come up with one? If you had to
yeah,
pick one strength of yours, what would it be?
well, I think that I'm approachable. I think I'm someone that's really easy to get along with,
Yeah.
or I like to think I am. So I think in that aspect, um, especially when you're sharing about being vegan and what it means to choose that life and everything about it, I think that hopefully I'm the type of person that doesn't feel the people, whoever I'm speaking with, doesn't feel judged when I'm speaking to them about it, but they just may see like a different way of looking at things.
Hmm. Hmm. Wonderful. I think that's absolutely
Yeah.
true. I can reflect that back to you as
Mm,
through meeting you in person, you do come across so warm and so approachable. And I think if you lead with that with your work, you can become known for that. And that's one of the reasons that you go through these kind of brainstorming exercises
mm,
is to figure out how other people see you and how you see yourself and what you want to focus on. And for you, if everything started to be centered around being that approachable, kind, warm person in the vegan space, then that's what's going to come through with your work, and that's how people are going to get to know you, and that's where you can really start to help people the most. But if you
mm,
didn't know that about yourself, if you weren't consciously focused on that, then that wouldn't necessarily come through your work. You might just be kind of scattered, and people wouldn't really be able to quickly say one of your strengths are. And sometimes this comes out naturally. Over time we develop this persona and we don't even realize it's happening. But the quicker you can identify it, my point being is that the quicker that other people can identify it within your work and within your personality. So I think that's really great that you have pinpointed that. So let's jump into the juicy part of this. And by the way, for everybody watching, if you want to check out Julie's work, it's all going to be linked in the YouTube description field once we're done with this live session. And you'll see the link up on my screen, whitneylauritsen.com/community. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, I have something called the Creators Community. And this session is kind of an example of what we do with the creators community. It's a group of content creators who are all very like-minded. Most of them are vegan content creators or vegetarian content creators, people that are really focused on health, the animals, the environment, and want to make a difference in the world through their content. So YouTubers, bloggers, podcasters, all different types of people on social media. And we meet once or twice a month through Google Hangouts like this. And we do these little brainstorming sessions to work through any challenges that people are facing. It's meant to hold you accountable. It's help you to make breakthroughs. And there's a huge focus on monetization as well, which is one of my big passions. I want to see content creators who want to make this their living, or at least their part-time living, be able to make that happen. So Julie, if you want to talk at all about monetization, we can today, or we can jump into just whatever challenges. I usually find that if you can overcome whatever challenges you're facing with your content creation, with your brand, your business, whatever you want to call it, that will always lead to monetization, because the more that you can expand online, the more people that can find you, and people find you, all sorts of amazing opportunities happen. There are so many possibilities out there, and I'm super passionate about helping people figure out how to monetize their work, because if you can monetize it, you'll keep going with it. It'll sustain it. It'll give you a reason to go. It'll help support all the work and the time that you're putting into it. So if you want to check out the creators community, it is that link on the screen, and it'll also be in the description field. And Julie's going to be part of it for the next month, which I'm super excited about. So she's an example of one of the amazing people that is part of this group. So with no further ado, Julie is going to let me know what she wants to focus on today, and then we're going to do a 15-minute deep dive session specifically on this subject matter. So drum roll, please. Julie, what would you like to focus in on today? What are you finding the most challenging, and what do you think is getting in your way of whatever success means to you with the work that you're doing?
Well, I'd like to focus on focus, like we talked about a few minutes
Great.
ago. I think what gets in my way is a lot of what gets in a lot of people's way, which is time. Oh, do I have enough time? Or, oh, I've got to go do this. Or just the pressure of feeling like you have to perform right then and there. If you did set aside a time, like you start a blog, but then nothing's happening, or it's not turning out the way you want to. And so I just kind of shut down, that kind of thing. I think it's just, maybe just a little more, I don't know if I want to say discipline, but just having some more focus. Because like I said, I have so much to say that I really need to start saying it.
Yes.
And not just have it like swirling around in my head.
Okay. I love that. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. That is a very common challenge. So I'm going to set a little timer so we can stay on track here. So tell me briefly, so that we get as
Mm-hmm.
much in as possible in this next
Okay.
15 minutes. How do you spend your day? So let's get some bullet points.
Okay.
What happens during a typical day for you?
So, if I'm not like at my regular job and I'm just home, because I work away from home,
Hmm.
so at least three, sometimes 3.5 or 4 days I'm gone.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes I can do some writing or something when I'm away, but I'm busy working. So I have really
Okay.
long
So that's
days.
3 or 4 days, right? So
Hmm.
when you're working those days, it's completely out of like you literally have no time because you're
A lot
working.
of times I don't, sometimes I do.
Okay.
And if I do, and I'm out of town and there's like some great restaurants, vegan options, then I try to put that into my day so I could use that for a blog, but time and time
Mhm.
and time again, then it ends up and never ends up happening. Because then I
Okay.
want to be able to show people, oh, if you go to Kansas City, you could get this or something like
Why
that.
do you
So,
think it doesn't happen? Are you tired?
well,
Are
sometimes
you
I'm tired and I eat it all before I take a picture, or like there's a myriad of things that
Yep.
happen.
Okay. So with something like that,
Mhm.
I think that when you become conscious of what's holding you back from that, you can start to figure out, okay, next time I'm going to do this. It's just like any other habit we're developing. It's like somebody who's trying to go vegan, when they might accidentally eat something non-vegan. That doesn't mean that they should stop trying to be vegan altogether, right? They
Yeah,
just need to remember the next meal to be eating plant-based. So for
yeah.
you, it just needs to become, okay, the next time I go to a restaurant, if I'm going to remember to take a picture, and maybe you're going to realize it halfway through that time instead of at the end after it's all gone. And that's progress there, right? So
Yes.
you have to make these mental notes, and each of us have kind of different practices that form habits. So for you, it might be setting a reminder on your phone. It might be writing it down every day. Next time I eat, I'm going to take a picture when my meal arrives. Like, so that just, you have to make it a habit, and that'll
Yeah.
help overcome that. So, and then sometimes you're tired, which is completely reasonable, especially if you're working.
Hmm.
But it is good to know that you can make time for your brand even when you have a job, even on the days that you're working. That's how my Eco Vegan Gal brand started. I was working more than full time. I had two different jobs, one full time, one part time. And literally any minute I had, I was either on social media or typing up a quick blog post or whatever else it was, because I was so excited about it. And then eventually I just decided to quit working because all I wanted to do was Eco Vegan Gal. So, and that was distracting, right? So for you, even if it's 15 minutes during one of those 3 or 4 days a week that you're working, if you want to, and if you can find a way to create that content on that day. But luckily for you, you still have 3 to 4 days a week that you're
Hmm.
not working. So what does a day look like for you then?
So, I'll get up. Usually, I go for a hike or do some sort of workout in the morning,
Okay.
and then and take care of the animals, that kind of thing, and then come home and get ready for the day. And then sometimes I have errands to run or something like that. I might have to go do those. Sometimes in the morning, though, I feel the most creative, like when I first get up. And I
Mhm.
really do like a little bit of quiet time before I go for the hike or whatever I'm going to do. And oftentimes, that's when the social media thing kind of takes me over because I'll be drinking my coffee and I'm like, oh, what did that person say? And then before I know it, I'm like, oh, I got to go for my hike. It's whatever. And
Okay.
so,
So let's stop you there for a second. So you were saying, I can't remember if this is before or after we started recording, but we were talking about this earlier. So with social media, it's super easy to be distracted by it. And that's a huge tip that I've heard recently. So what I would like you to do from now on is before you check social media, create something. So make that
oh,
part of your reward is I can't check social media until I create a piece of content. And that can be anything. That could be a blog post, that can be a tweet, that can be a photo for Instagram, whatever it is, you have to create something. So don't stress out about too much because it
yeah.
might just be a simple line on Twitter, right? 140 characters. It can take you a minute to write that. It doesn't have to be an elaborate Instagram post, right? So
Right.
it really helps to take off the pressure, because that's what gets in a lot of people's way. It doesn't sound like that might be your problem. It sounds like it's easy for you to come up with ideas and content. But for everybody else watching, a lot of times people are just like, there's too much pressure and I can't. This is what happens to me, especially with Instagram. But for you, whatever else your method is, just promise yourself that you'll create something. So don't turn on anything. Don't even open up Twitter if you're going to send a tweet. Put it in your notes. So do you have an iPhone, did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So any mobile device right now can do this, but you'll have the notes program on there.
Mm-hmm.
Compose your Instagram, your blog post, or your Twitter in your or your tweet, I should say, in your notes before you open the app, and then you copy that, paste it into the app, and if there's any photo involved, you add that in too. But literally what happens for most people is they're like, I'm just going to open up Twitter. I need to open up Twitter to compose a tweet. And then next thing you know, you have at mentions or you have your feed you're looking at and you're completely distracted.
Mm-hmm.
But making sure, I just heard this the other day. I thought this was just brilliant advice. If you need to create a blog post, don't go to wordpress.com or wherever else it's hosted and compose it in there, because you're opening up your web browser and then suddenly you're going to see this, and this pop up, and it might take you forever to get to that point. If you sit down and just open up a word processor or the notes on your mobile device and write your blog post in there without opening up the internet or any sort of social network, you will get so much done. And if that is social media now becomes equated with posting first and then checking, you'll feel much more accomplished, and it'll give you a reason to start checking social media. I think it can also help if you see yourself on a regular basis getting really distracted and quote unquote wasting time on social media, giving yourself specific times, like you were saying, maybe you should set a timer. That can really help. It's probably not going to last as a practice, but I know that you are very good about following rules, Julie. So maybe this would work for your personality type, is to set a timer on your iPhone. I'm doing that for us right now. So when you get into those two practices, you're going to create more and you're going to get less distracted. And I think that's going to help you focus in. All right. So we have just over 7 minutes. Let's dive into the next realm of this. There was another aspect I felt like you were going to say that was hard about focusing, or do you feel like that was a big?
I feel like this is absolutely brilliant, like you said, especially like going into the notes first. It just feels easier and just more accessible, because I go into notes all the time when I hear something that I like, or I want to remember a brand, or I want to remember a website or my grocery list or something like that. So I use it all the time, but it never occurred to me to use it in this aspect. So I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I also feel like, since you said that you have so many great ideas, do you write these down? When you said you do write things down in your notes, but how in depth is it? Just kind of like bullet points, one-liners, or do you ever just compose like the beginning of a blog post or an Instagram post in your notes? How far in depth do you do that when you have a good idea?
Both, but not always. So
Okay.
what I mean by that is, if I, especially when I'm hiking, one reason why I really like hiking and just being outside is that's when things just open up for me, and it's a very positive place for me to be. Even if I'm having like a not so good day, or I have something troubling on my mind, when I go and I'm outside, it's very therapeutic.
Yes.
And so a lot of ideas come to me there. So I always have my phone, mostly just for safety. If I fell down or something, I needed to call for help. So I might just jot it down there on my notes. But then later I actually really like pen and paper. So a lot of times I say a lot, sometimes I'll just take pen and paper and I'll start to write, especially if it's more of a heartfelt something that I want to share on my blog, and not just like a product or a city I visited or something like that.
Well, how frequently does the brainstorming you do on the hiking translate to an actual blog post or social media post? Is it something that's just kind of being cataloged, or is it actually being implemented?
It's only being implemented a little bit.
Okay. So I
So,
want you to make, so one of the biggest keys to success with social media, with blogging, and that people will say this across the board, it is the ultimate rule for being a content creator is you have to be consistent. And you also have to create a lot of content if you want people to start following you, to recognize you, if you want Google to pick up on you. You need to be regular and you need to have a lot of content to get going. And some people can find this a lot of pressure. You need to set your own rules in terms of what that means for you. So consistency can mean once a day, once a week, once a month, a few times a year. It doesn't matter how frequently it is. It just matters that you're doing it on a regular schedule. But I do recommend for people that are kind of just starting out or want to launch or get everything going again is to do as much as you possibly can. So I usually recommend at least one social media post a day, which is easy for most of us. If you can couple that with a blog post or even sharing an old blog post of yours, that's going to help bring some traffic to your site. But for you, Julie, you have so many ideas. If you can just write a paragraph on your blog a day and get your voice out there, that's going to make it a practice, that's going to help you establish what you really want to say, and that's going to help build your audience. And I think writing a paragraph is super easy for someone like you. And so it could even be maybe 3 days a week. Maybe it's every day that you're off work, you commit to doing a blog post, right? Because you have that hiking. But maybe you're going to get into such a great practice that during your job, you're also going to get the practice of composing this blog post that by the end of that day, even if you're exhausted, you have the energy to write that one paragraph, to take that one photo, or whatever else it's going to be. Just figure out what's going to work best for you. And it doesn't have to be perfect at first. I think a lot of people want to jump right into okay, if I'm going to do every day, I've got to start right now. And then like we were saying earlier, if you miss a day, you suddenly beat yourself up and you feel like you threw everything off, so you got to stop. But remember, this is a practice. So forgive yourself if you don't stay on schedule yet, and start to take note of why you're not staying on schedule. I've noticed this about myself, is I'll find myself avoiding doing certain things, and I realize I have to step back and say, why am I avoiding this? Why is this hard for me? Maybe I don't need to be doing it that way. So for you, if you get into the practice of trying to do this every day, you'll start noticing what times of the day work best for you, what days of the week work best for you. You'll start noticing your own habits and patterns, and then you can switch your schedule over. So if you start off with doing 5 days a week and then realize, actually, there's only 3 days each week where I really feel most excited about it, cut back to that and then commit to doing those 3 days every single week. I think what's also going to really help you, Julie, is if you commit to writing your blog post either first thing in the morning when you said that you have the most creative energy going, or as soon as you get back from that hike. And you start to make that part of your practice, just like with social media, that every time I get back from the hike, I'm going to write this blog post because that's when I feel the best about it. And then I'm going to share it on social media. And this is all before you check social media. So maybe your day starts to look like you wake up, you have food or whatever else it is, you go for your hike, you write the blog post, you compose social media, and then you go on social media and spread the word. And social media becomes like this reward, and you feel so much more accomplished because you got work done, and now social media is serving a purpose. I think one of the reasons that social media can feel very distracting to people is when you're using it as a personal tool versus a professional tool. But when you look at social media as a way to get the word out about what you're doing, then it becomes a great use of your time because you're promoting yourself, you're getting your content out there. So after you get this blog post done, you're going to have a reason to be on social media, and it's going to feel that much more rewarding. I also feel like what could be beneficial to you is, instead of writing things down, maybe you can record an audio note to yourself. That can make sure that you're more in the moment, because I know sometimes, especially on a hike, when you stop to write, sometimes it feels like it's taking you out of that experience. What my dad does, and he's been doing this for years, is he goes on walks every single day. He's religious about it. And he always brings an audio recorder. He uses like an old school tape recorder. But we have iPhones, so iPhones or any mobile device have audio recorders built into them, and it's with you anyways. And you can use these on airplane mode. So you can record yourself an audio note and then come home and just either listen to it and write things out and use it as inspiration, or you can even use like dictation software, which can be really affordable. There's probably even some great free dictation software where it will actually take what you're saying and translate it into words, and then you can edit from there. So that could become something worth practicing, because then you get to stay in the moment, you stay creative, and then you have something to work with as soon as you get home.
That is a wonderful idea. I love that. And definitely doing the dictation or recording.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that, Whitney.
Try it a few different ways. Try it where you just have quick notes. Like it could be like, okay, I'm going to say this, and it's just a couple lines and put it down. Oh, and there's blah, blah, blah. And actually, we were talking about iPhone headphones before. You can actually use the mic from this to record. So you don't even have to really like hold it up to your face. People won't even notice. Like if you're walking with somebody else, like they'll feel like you're pausing. It doesn't feel like a major break in the conversation. And if you're on your own, somebody's just going to think you're on your phone or something, talking to somebody, but you're recording a message. But I feel like whether it's bullet points or you actually just don't be afraid to actually say your entire blog post, and talk in the voice. Sometimes that can actually really help with you figuring out what your voice is, literally and figuratively, in terms of blog writing, is when you compose a blog post directly from your voice into your phone and then get home and use a dictation software, it's going to come out completely different than when you're writing it. And a lot faster and easier for some people. For some people, this might not work. Maybe writing is the way that they like to get all of this out. But it sounds like that's going to work really well for you. So I think that could be a really cool practice to get into.
I'm definitely going to give it a shot. That's for sure.
Okay, so our 15-minute session is up. So we've got some great tools for you to start with. So out of this, what are your next steps? How do you see the next day of work going for yourself?
Gosh, I'm excited. I'm going to obviously mull over everything we just talked about and make some notes for myself. And I'm excited. I mean, just ever since we got in touch about doing this Google Hangout, well, initially I was petrified, but I made the commitment anyway. So
I love that.
Okay, I made the commitment, and I thought, oh my gosh, I got to get my act together. But then I thought, that's not the whole point. Is this is going to help me, not thrust me into being perfect. So, so then going over the questions, of course, was so helpful, because sometimes you don't know the questions to ask yourself, or you just need a little bit of self-reflection. So yes. I did that. That was really helpful. And now I have some other things to go over that we just talked about. So I'm so appreciative for you.
Well, I'm appreciative to you too for being here. I love just hearing what's going on in people's minds and how they work and what works for them and what's clicking. And I can't wait to see how this goes for you. And I know that I have complete faith that this is just going to be whatever this is going to evolve into, whether you directly take my advice or my advice inspires you to do things differently that I didn't even come up with, you're going to figure out this path. I think the big key is to stay as focused as possible. So figure out what your priorities are, what you want to say, and just stay on track with it. Turn it into some sort of habit. Whatever that schedule becomes for you, whatever feels most genuine and authentic to you and what you want to do, and sort of regular practice. So I think the biggest key that I really want you to work with right now, though, is that social media. So however you want to compose your blog posts, like however that flows for you. But the social media, I think, is the one thing that you could value from being more strict about, is that it becomes a rule for you. You do not look at social media until you've composed something.
And I like that.
Again, it feels strict in the sense where it might feel like a lot of pressure, but that turns social media into something purposeful for your brand, not just this personal thing where you're going through it and getting lost in it. And for Facebook, like you mentioned earlier, maybe Facebook is the personal. I have a cat visiting here myself. Maybe Facebook is the one platform you go on that has nothing to do with business. Or you could also say to yourself, I'm just going on social media today for personal use only. And that's okay, right? And you don't have to set a timer if it's just for fun. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. But if you feel like on a regular basis, you're not getting accomplished, it's distracting you, that's where the strictness can come to your advantage. So don't be too strict about being strict is also important is you don't, I think for a lot of people that can be detrimental if they feel like they have these specific rules they have to work with, but trying it out doesn't hurt. So try it out for maybe a week and see how this rule of I'm not going on social media until I post something first, see how that feels for you.
And I think, like, for me, it doesn't feel strict. It feels like I have a plan that, like, I'm accountable for because we talked about it. And so that, I think that's motivating in and of itself. Because like I told you before, as much fun and as much play as I can have in my life, I really try to, incorporate that, because I can be a very serious person. And just as much as I'm serious, as much as I want to play, just as much as I'm an extrovert, as much as I'm an introvert. So I always have to find a balance with these types of things. So I actually feel like I can take a deep breath because I have more of a plan now.
Yes,
and
great.
And I'm super excited about it.
And the last thing was getting into the habit of taking those photos when you eat your meals.
Yes.
You know what, the thing that's also a balance too, because it can get a little out of hand.
I know.
There's a big joke right now that, an Instagrammer because they don't eat until they've taken their photo. And I think that there's a fine line there. If that is genuinely your job and your goal to take great Instagram photos, it's okay. But I also feel like it's important to be in the moment when you have a meal. For you, though, since you're trying to get into the habit, just simply saying, I'm going to take this picture, even if it's a regular, like you're just having lunch at home or dinner at home, just saying, oh, okay, I got to take the picture, and just snap something real quick as your habit. And that way it triggers you each time you eat. Do you want to take a picture of this meal? And then once it becomes a habit, then you'll be able to say, oh, I don't need to take one of this meal. But it's the thought is going to keep coming back into your head versus finishing a meal and then going, oh no, this meal was so beautiful, I forgot to take a picture of it. So for you, I think it would also be beneficial as lunch, dinner, breakfast, just start practicing taking out your phone and saying, okay, picture, and just take one quick snap. And then within a few days to a few weeks, you'll just be in that habit. And whenever you travel to great restaurants, you'll have that there.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I'll do that for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Well, my assignment to you right now is that as soon as we finish off, I want you to compose something before you check social media. So shut down your browser or whatever. Like, don't look at anything. Just compose something, whatever comes to mind, however long it takes before you check social media. So you immediately get into that practice. And make sure I would love to be tagged in it, or just send it to me privately so I can see it and I can hold you accountable for it too.
Okay, that sounds great. You got a deal.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, links to everything that Julie is doing are down below in the YouTube description field. Please check her out and follow her so you can also hold her accountable. You can tell she's an amazing person, so she's a great person to connect with. If you're looking for more inspiration, you want an accountability partner too, that can be really huge. Feel free to think of Julie as the person that you're paying attention to, because you're holding her accountable as much as she'd be holding you accountable by following her online and liking her posts and feeling inspired by the work that she's doing there. As I mentioned in the beginning, I would love to have you part of the creators community. Julie is going to be part of it this month. And we have incredible people in there. Speaking of accountability, that's a huge, huge element of it. Meeting monthly and actually talking 24/7. There's a whole forum on there where you can talk with other creators, ask questions, share challenges, share your successes, share resources that you fine. That's the whole part of this great community that has been put together there. So again, that's at whitneylauritsen.com/community. You can join anytime. You can join on a month-to-month basis, or you can get the annual membership and save a little bit of money that way. And we will welcome you with open arms. So Julie, we are super excited seeing you in our next call, which is in a few weeks. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for being part of this, Julie. It has been great to get to know you and your brand more in depth. And I'm so excited for everyone else learning more about what you do.
Thank you so much, Whitney. You're such an inspiration to me, truly. And I just appreciate this time with you.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Really, it's such a joy. I could stay out here and talk for so long. It's so hard for me to, but it's already been 40 minutes. So, but I don't know how to be brief. That's my time. Thank you, everybody who watched live and who's been watching the recording. I look forward to your feedback in the comment section, and I will see you in another episode of whatever I end up calling this. But today it's called Success Quest. I definitely need some feedback in terms of what I should call this. I felt really stumped because part of the inspiration behind this was from Pat Flynn and Chris Ducker, who have something called the One-Day Business Breakthrough. So I love the term business breakthrough, but I also want something that appeals to content creators because that's mainly who I'm working with here. So is it content breakthrough, creators break? I don't know. I don't know what the name is, but hopefully somebody will make a suggestion. Okay, well, Julie, I hope to see you in person soon. I'll see you in the creators community. And to everyone else watching, I will see you in the next episode.